at the Mishnah. It's page 34. A woman who took a neder to become a Nazira, she set aside her animal, and then her husband nullified her vow. If the animal is then the animal may go out and graze as if it was never sanctified. Because the Gemara is going to explain why that is. If the animal is hers, it was the one she designated to be her chatos must die. The one she designated to be the ola. Can be the sacrifice is an ola. Instead of being ola schova, it's an ola sadav. Instead of being mandatory, it's now a voluntary ola. Similarly, ushlomim, the karma is supposed to be a shlomim. You call shlomim can be brought instead of a mandatory shlomim as a voluntary shlomim. They are eaten for one day, and they do not require bread. Okay, just like any other shlomim. Normally, a shlomim bought by a Nazir requires bread accompanying it. But since this is no longer the shlomim of a Nazir, since her neder was canceled by her husband, so therefore, ein tuim lechem does not require bread. What if she had money allocated but not yet specified for the specific korbanos of the 3 korbanos? Then Yiplu Nadava, they go to buy olos as a gift to the Beis Hamikdash. Most Mefurashim, if the money had already been allocated for the specific, designated for specific korbanos, then the mechatos, the money she designated to be the chatos, yechuliyam hamelach, that money has to be buried or thrown to the Dead Sea. You can't have any benefit from it. Lo nanin v'lo moli. Now that benefit from it, but on the other hand, since it can never come to fruition as a korban, there is no me'ilah. There's no problem with using abusing the money in terms of me'ilah, because me'ilah is only money which may potentially come to fruition as a korban. The me'olah, the money set aside to be an olah, yaviu olah, they should use to bring an olah. Umalin bohem, and since the olah can still be brought from that for those funds, so therefore there's supposed to be still me'ilah. The mei shlamim, the money set aside for shlamim, yaviu shlamim, they bring for shlamim. The mei shlamim, there's no me'ilah in the money. There's only me'ilah once the korban is sacrificed, not prior to the sacrifice of the korban. All the other korbanos, until such time as they are sacrificed, there's me'ilah. Until Zrika Saddam, actually, by shlamim, the me'ilah Torah starts only when the korban is sacrificed. The shlomim bread is eaten for one day. Ve'entuin lechem, it does not require any bread. Okay, says the Gemara.
Isn't that paradoxical that the money of the chatos, which is void, you can't do anything with it, but yet if you use it, there's no me'ilah.
Right. Why is that paradoxical? Because it's void, there's no me'ilah.
But you certainly can't get annulled from it.
Right, but there's no Isser Milah. Isser Milah is contingent on the ultimate use as a korban. Right, not on Isser Anah. Things that are also by Anah don't always generate Milah. If you have Avodah Zorah, it's also by Anah, but there's no Milah involved. Milah specifically where the funds may someday be used by the Beis HaMikdash to buy korbanos or bet a kabayis or something like that.
What law is there if you use this money instead of going to the
I don't know, maybe something generic like you something generic like lo yidbak b'cham min acherem. No, don't use any forbidden funds. Not a specific law I'm aware of. Okay, so says the Gemara, holy kaddish kacha. If she consecrates her korban, it becomes kaddish. How come? It's not really hers. Anything she owns is under her obligation to her husband, right? Like we're learning Ksuvas now. So how could she be makadish korbanos? So ela b'shanos la'acher matana. This is a case where somebody else gave her a gift of a calf, of sheep, obviously. Baruch said to her, "Manash lo yela balech rishus bain," on the condition that your husband has no authority over them. Shalohein. Now, on the other hand, what about in the next case? The next case in the Mishnah talks about, well, actually, the previous case talks about where she set aside a korban from his herd. Shalohein. As the Gemara asks, is it hers to set aside? How to write does she have to set aside korbanos from his herd? Amar Ramatanya said yes. B'mashletes al nechosov. generally speaking, actually, this is the way marriage works. That you give your wife authorization, control over your property. V'bo micha, if however he comes and protests, lokitcha, then the kedusha is no. V'imlav, if not, kodcha, then the kedusha is valid. So here too, since he was made for the neder, that's why the kedusha she applied to the animal from his herd is nullified. But had he not been made for the neder, the kedusha applied to the animal from his herd would be valid. Okay. Taman Omer, over there, at Moitze, sorry. Taman at Moitze Omer, over there you find, now this is talking about a chacha, this is talking about an individual who was Noder Nazir, later in the next parak, and he goes to a chacham. And the chacham is matir the neder. So in that case we say, Tira Beder. You say that it goes out and grazes, right? But here you say, even after the hafara takes place, the chatas has to die, and the oil and shlomi are brought as voluntary karbanos. How come? If later on, when a guy is matir's neder, we say the karbanos revert to chulin. Here too, why don't the karbanos revert to chulin altogether? So it says the Gemara, top of the Yud Chesed Aleph, Tamon there, Hazokin Oikeras Haneder Meikaro. A Zokin, when a Chacham is matir neder, he undermines the neder retroactively and completely. Bramach, however, Ein Oikem Mikano Lahabo. Here he only is Oker from here on in. By Baal who's Mayfair, it's only from here on in. So actually her Nazirus was a valid Nazirus for some time. So therefore the korban cannot be disregarded and returned to the flock as is. Rather, it has elements of a valid korban. That's why it had the chata says to die, and the other korbanos are brought as voluntary. Now, it's important to know the machlokas between the Rogachover and everybody else, basically. Although I think the Rogachover is correct in this. There's elsewhere in Shas is a machlokas when a husband is made for his wife's nedarim. Is it retroactively or is it from here on in? And it seems here that the Yerushalmi is taking sides and saying it's from here on in, right? It's not retroactively. Well, that's good if you hold that way consistently throughout Shas. But there's a contradiction in the Rambam and probably other Rishonim where it seems like in other Nedarim he holds that the husband works retroactively, and here he accepts the Gemara which says that the husband works from here on in. So actually, the Rogachover wants to say that the hafaras nazirus of a nazira by a husband is a special parameter the Torah gave. It's not the standard hafara. The standard hafara, in fact, might work retroactively. Those in nedarim avinu nefesh, or nedarim beino lebeino, nedarim which have to do with her with afflictions of her soul, or nedarim which reflect their relationship. And it's possible that nazir also affects their relationship. But nazir has yet another pasuk to be learned out from. The pasuk which Nazir is learned out from is the pasuk of which Umar is going to bring down momentarily, and therefore it might have different parameters. Let's see that pasuk. Mi mefer sholem. First of all, the Gemara asks in the second line, who nullifies that which is upon her? Now, two pshatim here. What does eshel mean? One pshat is that of the Noam Yerushalmi, who says that who makes her hair permitted. In other words, the hair which she grows is kadosh. It says the hair is kadosh, and it has aser bana. Who permits that hair again? How much makes that hair ois kadosh? But that's not what most of the Farshim say. Most of the Farshim explain it means who undermines the karbanos. In other words, once he sanctifies the men she sacrificed the karbanos, maybe Taka, he's not allowed to be made for the Nazirus. He has to let it go to fruition because the karbanos were already set aside. Who gives him the right to undermine the karbanos which were set aside? Okay? How do we know he has such a right? Mi meiba shalom, Rabbi Yisachinin, Xeris HaKosavi. It's a Xeris HaKosav, and here it should be a pasuk. The Shari so changes it. It should be the pasuk which says in Bamidbar Leparak Lam pasuk says Ve'feres nidra asher oleh. Okay, instead of Ve'feres nidra, or maybe just before that, it should say Ve'feres nidra asher oleh. He's matir the neder asher oleha. Now, asher oleh has several meanings. Asher oleh can literally mean the nazirus, that which is upon her, right? Upon her means the growth of hair. It could also mean asher oleh she's made for the base nether, which is Nazirus, and also the accoutrements which come with it, which are here the karbanos. Nidra and Asher Aleh besides that. What's the Asher Aleh? Not just the base nether of Nazirus, but also the karbanos which are required concomitantly. Okay? Mishu made for as Nidra, Mishu Efer Nidra, who made for Mashaleh. He who undermines the nether, undermines also that which is upon her. Tan, okay, so that's how we know that it can be made for a nether, it can be made for also the karbanos upon her. And again, to the Rosh Hashanah, it's not the regular halacha first the Nedarim. It's unique halacha which has to do with Nazirus. Okay, we'll have to see if that bears out throughout the Gemara further. Probably doesn't say anything. Yeah, no, it doesn't bring down this bus. That's my leafing through today. I didn't notice that brings it down. Tani, we learned. Ain't tunim lo lecha v'lo zor. Not the shlamim not only does not require bread, also doesn't require the cooking of the arm. The halacha is by a nazir. When a nazir becomes Torah and you bring the shlamim, the arm is supposed to be cooked. The arm of not the nazir's arm, the korban's arm. Okay, so there's a special halacha supposed to cook it in a pot over the hair, which is burnt underneath it. The nazir's hair is burnt underneath the pot. So there's no such halacha, obviously, if the neder is nullified, right? Rabun Barachia, Breder of Shimon. Sort of question exactly what the gear says, whether it's supposed to be Rabun Barachia, Breder of Shimon, or something else. But anyway, let's just leave it like this. Now, there are two pshatim here. One pshat is the Shai Torah Tzitzel's pshat, which makes the Bavli and Yerushalmi work out. But we don't like making Bavli and Yerushalmi work out. We like making them argue, right? So therefore we're going to learn like the Korban Eidah that they argue. So like the Korban Eidah, it says, if you she died as a Nazira. She died in her Nazirus. Her Shlami comes after her death. Ma'u shitanu lechem. Do we say since she died in Nazirus, so you bring bread? Do we say since she ain't no longer out to sacrifice the Karbanos, so there's no bread to accompany the Karban? Okay? So it says, Chazar Amar, he turned around and said, B'chein b'chain. Let's talk about when she's alive. Now, when she's alive, the case is talking about, again, according to Korban Eidah and Shai Torah, so different shot. According to Korban Eidah, we're talking about the case where a Nazir set aside her Karbanos and they got lost. And she brought other ones instead. It can be a male Nazir too. And he brought other ones instead. And then they found the first ones. So the first ones get sacrificed, but without bread, right? Because they're not the Karbanos Chov anymore, right? So in that case, he was a Nazir, and the Karbanos were set aside for Nazirus, but since the Kapara was no longer a necessary Kapara, because you already achieved it elsewise, so therefore there's no bread. Here too, after death, there's no, as well, the same thing would be true. So that's what he says. Oh no, I'm sorry, I made a mistake. No. Sorry. It says here, no. That the second time around, they're not necessary, and nonetheless you do bring bread. Sorry, you do bring bread. Even still, they require bread, right? Here too, after death, tunim lechem, they require bread. They require bread as well. Now, the Bavli holds fakert. The Bavli holds that if she dies in Nazirus, and you bring the Shlomi after death, there is no lechem, because she's no Nazir. She's not a Nazira anymore. She's dead, right? It's like Yesh Nazir Bekever. But so we say she's dead. It doesn't require bread anymore, and so therefore he wants to say that the comparison of the Yerushalmi is not to a Nazir who lost his Karbanos, but rather to a Nazira whose Nazirus was canceled, where there is no bread. But again, according to the Korban Eidah, Yerushalmi's conclusion is that this Nazir who died as Nazirus is like a Nazir who lost his Karbanos, and the Nazir who lost his Karbanos replace Karbanos, and then brings his original Karbanos after they are found, does bring bread on both sets of Karbanos, and so to the Nazir after death, when we bring his Karbanos on behalf, then bread is brought as well. Okay? So that would be a Machlokas Bavli Yerushalmi, whether the Nazirus, according to the Korban Eidah, it says Katunim Lechem, that that would be a Machlokes by Yerushalmi if the Nazirus continues after death or not. Okay? Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yossi, Pshita Rabbi Bumbarchir, Rabbi Bumbarchir knew very clearly, Yerushalmi Aboim La'achar Hafara, that Shlom which comes after Hafara, not after death, not after a loss, but after the Nazir had and the Nazir was cancelled. So then, that's clear. Shein Tunim Lechem, that it does require bread. Ma ben Misa, Ma ben Hafara. This clearly indicates like the Korban Eidah that Misa and Hafara are different. I don't really know why the Shai Teretz Yisrael learned the way he did to reconcile the Baal and the Yerushalmi, because obviously it seems quite clear from the Yerushalmi that there's a distinction between after Hafara and after Misa. And after Hafara, there is no bread after the Baal nullifies. But after Misa, there is bread, again, clearly arguing on the Bavli. So Ma ben Hafara, Ma ben Misa, Ma ben Hafara. What's the distinction? Misa, where she died, for nearly Toy Lechem, these karbanos were already suitable to have bread bought with them. Hafara, in the case where the neder was undermined, Loni Rulei Toy Lechem, the bread was there, they're never suitable to have bread. Period. New issue. Tani. Let's say the woman was a Nazira. This is a cool case actually, and again in Machlokes Baal Yerushalmi, the Rambam passes like Yerushalmi in this case. The woman became a Nazira Tmeah, and then her husband was made for her. So Nazira Tmeah brings an Osham and 2 birds, right? So what happens if a Nazira, she became a Nazira Tmeah, and then her husband was made for her? Can she bring the Osham? Okay. Now, of course, she didn't set aside yet. She doesn't. But she set it aside before the husband was made for her neder. So then they should bring the Osham. Okay? So it says, Tani Osham la'achafara. What about Osham after Hafara? Ein Osham la'achar Misa. Well, there is no Osham after death. Meaning Mesa, once she's dead, Ein Osham. If you don't sacrifice an Osham. An Osham is like a chatos. After death, you don't sacrifice the chatos for a person. If they're burning in hell for whatever sin they committed, the chatos doesn't do them any good anymore, right? Osham, the same thing. It's basically the same thing. Shlomi, you can sacrifice after death. Ola after death, but not chatos. And not Osham. So there's no Osham after death. What about after Hafara, right? So, Ein Osham Achar Misa. Mesa Ein Osham Karev. Heifer Law, Ashama Karev. Nevertheless, in Heifer Law, the Ashama is Karev. Mesa in Ashama Karev. If she dies, then you don't bring the Asham. Shein Chasham Karev Lachar Misa, no Asham after death. Heifer Law, what if you were made for her? Then Ashama Karev. Asham can be sacrificed. Why? Because Shein L'cha Asham Ba'abatala Kazeh. There's no Asham for naught in this case. There are a couple of pshatim here. The Pnei Moshe explains that it means that, look, there was a time when she was in the Nazir Tmeah. Since Hafara works from here on in, not retroactively. So therefore, the time she was in the Nazir Tmeah was real. So therefore, you can't deny its reality, so it's not an Osham for naught, as long as, of course, she's still alive. That's the way the Bnei Shalosh learns, which is nice. The Korban Eidah learns slightly differently. Korban Eidah learns that an Osham in and of itself can always come in a suffix. Because there's the concept of what kind of Asham? Asham Toli, right? Asham Toli comes on a suffix. You're not sure if it can be Naveh or not. So therefore that means, and there's a Gemara in Krisus which says that Bava ben Buta, we don't pass him like him, but Bava ben Buta would bring an Asham Toli every day, maybe he committed an Aveira today, right? So therefore, the year 2, in the Zira, the Asham we see doesn't have the same parameters to generate the required responsibility of it. To bring it, it's almost like a shlomi. You can almost volunteer it. So therefore, here too, see, even though the Baal is made for her, nevertheless, she can bring an Asham because an Asham requires less antecedents in order to bring it. Okay? So,
in terms, I would say the first is like closure. You need closure on this situation.
The Pnei Moshe. Yeah.
She was a Nazir Tameya, and even though it was made for her, she needs closure on it.
It could be. It's nice. I don't know if that's what Gemara meant. I doubt it, but it's a nice drush. Okay. Says when a Talmud Tninan learns over there, Moshe Nazirim LeNazirim. Now you have a there was, I guess there was a Nazir fund in the Beis HaMikdash. It was like one of these pushkas. Anybody wants to help support the Nazirim, this is the place to put the money to support the Nazirim. So if there's leftover money to push, it goes to other Nazirim, right? Most of Nazir, what if specific Nazir set aside money? So then, Linatov, it goes to voluntary korbanos if it's left over. Amar Chizah said there's a catch there. Vusha karva chatoso basof. If the last korban to be sacrificed is the chatos. So once he sacrificed the oil, he sacrificed the shlamim, or he brought it, then brought the shlamim, and then he sacrificed chatos, then there's money left over. So we passed in moiser chatos, that which is left over from a chatos is nedava. A chatos itself can't be left over, you have to kill it if you could, starve it to death. But the money left over, after you bought the chatos, that can go to nedava. So if the last korban in your sequence was a chatos, and then you had money left over, then it goes to nedava. Okay? However, v'im karvu shlomo basof, the order of the korbanos of a nazir is not an impediment. So if shlomi was the last korban, so then Musar Shlomi, the leftover funds are Shlomi. Because Musar Chatos goes to Nedava, which means Olos. But Musar Shlomi goes to Shlomi. So it depends which the last one sacrificed. Amr Abizir said, not true. I feel this is basically the Bible, the same thing. I feel Karva Shlomo Lubasoif, even the Shlomo was the last Karbanos brought, Halocha Achasi Benozi, which means Halocha Moshe Sinai. Shetei Musar Nedava, whatever funds are left over, regardless of the sequence of the Karbanos, those funds left over are Nedava. Masisim Saradeh, we have a price which goes like each one. Masisim Messiah Rabbi Zero. So there's a price which goes like Rabbi Zero, which holds Halocha Moshe Sinai. What does it say? Elen Mos Tumim. This is money which is not designated. So what are we talking about? Kol Shedmei Chatos Mesos Muravos Mibayan. Anytime when there's money in the pot, which theoretically should have gone to a chatos, which has to die. Such as, let's say, our mission. A woman was set aside money for a chatos, and hold on to shline, because she was a Nazira. Then her husband was made for a Nazirus. So that money would go, if you had a chatos already from that money, that chatos would have to die. Right? So there's money of a chatos mesa in this pot. Right? She set aside a face. Each korban costs, let's say, $50. Set aside $150. Of this $150, $50 are gone to buy a chatos, and that chatos would have had to be starved to death. Right? So says the Gemara, Ele mostu min kosher dmei chatos muravas mesas muravas ben. Vafilu hifrish dmei chatos mesas. Even you set aside the $50. In other words, you took out the $50 and said, "Oh, this $50 is the awesome $50. I'm going to toss this into the Dead Sea, into the Yam HaMelech." Nonetheless, the money which is left, most tumimim, they're considered to be money which is generic, right? Because it was designated, and it goes to Nedava, right? Why'd you go to Nedava? The chatos is taken out first. The money left over is Olah and Shlamim. So let's say, if you hold like the opinion that the sequence of korbanos is critical, so if you took out the money of the chatos first, and you left the money of Olah Shlamim, so that it should be like whatever the last korban is. By virtue of the fact that it says, even if you took out the money of the chatos, it still all goes to Nedava. That's what Rabbi Zero holds, that it's Allah Moshe Sinai by this Nazir, that whatever sequence the korbanos were designated in, no matter what, whatever's left over goes to Nedava. Okay? Well, I don't see it in the Yerushalmi, but I say the Bible, I think, uses that language explicitly, if I recall from today. I'm looking it up, yeah. Masisim Sa'ar of Chista. There's a price which right of Chista. The guy said, Elu chatosi. This is for my chatos. V'Hashem Nazir was saying the others for the rest of my Naziris, meaning the Olah Shlamim. Umeis, and he dies. Mo'alim bekulan. Then there's Me'ilah and all the money. Not a part of the money. It's interesting terminology. What it means is there's money in a pot together, right? There's chatos, olah, and shlamim money, right? So there's if you do let's say the chatas money is by itself, that's $50. And then you have the $100 of Ola and Shlomi mixed together. In order to commit Mila, you have to be moiling all the money. I don't know if all of it, but at least in $51. Because there's no Mila and Shlomi. So if you're only moiling $50 worth, maybe $50 you committed Mila against was the $50 of the Shlomi. So in order to be considered that you committed Mila, you have to do Mila on all $100. Again, I'm not sure if it's taka all $100 or $51. Because I don't know if Me'ila requires that you moil in the entire amount of the carbon, even part of it. But anyway, the bottom line is they have to be moiled more than $50. Okay? So that's a moiling bekulan in all of the funds, below mitzvahs and not in part of the funds, because part of the funds are designated to shlamim, right? So, again, Eluchatas Shalons, you'll see mace, and the guy died, moiling bekulan, you only moil if you damage all of them. Now, if the guy died actually, then even all $150 are together. There's no me'ila on funds which are designated to chatas mesa, because they're not going to come to fruition ever. There's no me'ila on shlomi, because there's no me'ila on shlomi until after it's slaughtered. The only me'ila there is an ola. So you have to actually be moil, let's say all $150 to work together. You have to either at least in $101, maybe no $150, right? So, v'lo amar, but it doesn't say here, v'meis yiplu b'nadava. If you hold that Mesa and Nazir is all for Nadava, so that means all the funds left over, at least the $100 besides the Chatas money, is Nadava, is all Ola. If you hold like Rav Zir, it's Aloch Moshe B'Sinai, so whatever's left over from a Nazir becomes Olas Nadava, so none of it's going to Shlomim. Right? The only way you can go to Shlomim is if you hold like Rav Chisda, that where the last carbon sequence is a Shlomim, then whatever's left over can be a Shlomim. But if you hold it, no matter what the sequence is, whatever is left over after the Chatas money is set aside is for Ola, then why did it be more than $50? Why did it be more than Bekulan? Even any amount of money that you take is from what's designated for the Dava, and the Dava equals Ola. So it must be that this price holds that it's not that automatically money goes into Zava, and that's like Rav Chisda. Okay? Rav Chisda said further, Moisel Lechem Nazir, what the Nazir set aside his breads already. By the way, it's not Chometz, if I recall correctly, it's Matzah, but it's called Lechem anyway. So you're okay if it's got a rot. Rabbi Yossi V'Yos, that's good, you're saying good. La Krivo B'Fnei Atzim L'Yetzo, you can't sacrifice it by itself. Shein Chol Lechem Korei B'Natz, there's no bread brought on its own. But even in Nazirus Acheres, Einat Yochol, you can't sacrifice to any other Nazirus. Shein L'Chol Nazirus B'Avlo Lechem, every Nazir's got to bring his own bread. BYOB. That's so you have to say, Mosar Lechem Nazir, okay, it's got to rot. So I remember they wanted to say, Hu Moisar Lachmo, that's true about his bread. Hu Moisar Nesacha, that's true also about the wine and oil libations he would bring. Moisar Nesacha, whatever's left over for the wine oil libations, Kache Kadoshim Minun. It's Kache Kachim. As a halacha, that the leftover Kache Kachim Yiplun in the Dava. I guess it's also Lach Moshe, even though he doesn't say that. I see them as I go through Shas, that no Kachim concepts stick in my mind. At least they don't stick in my mind anywhere near as much as any other concept. So I have no recollections from Kachim. So I guess that's because I'm not really a brisker. But in any event, so Kachim, they fall. But anything left over from Kachim means not Shlomim. Any other carbon that can go to Nadava. So therefore, the Nesachim can go for Nadava. Okay, because the Nesachim are Kachim. Al Daiti Rabbi Yossi Rabun. According to Rabbi Yossi Rabun, Shmuel. According to Yossi Rabun, the following three Amoraim said the same thing. Shmuel, Rav Chisda, Rav Lezer, Shloshon Mudavar Echad. What's that? That Kachi, whatever's left over is Nidava. Rav Chisda, Hein Da'ach. Rav Chisda, that's what we just learned about the Nesachim. No, not about the Nesachim. Rav Chisda is that which we just learned. That it's that toy about is there one who said it? No, Chris is the one who said that no, it says here that's the rot, because that's Moser. I guess Rav Chisda's left out. Rav Chisda said Moser lechem you're okay, and we said according to him it's only the bread and not the nesachim. So I guess that's what it means. In other words, that statement of not the nesachim, that is attributed to Rav Chisda because he only said the bread, and therefore you say Moser kachi kachi, we can go to the nedava. Shmuel, what's the case of Shmuel? The Rabbi Yossi said, Adan Tom was still Bavel. Shamis called Rabbi Yehuda. I heard the voice of Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Shmuel, but asked Rabbi Shmuel, Hivish Shiklo Mace. What if a guy set aside his shekel, Chamachtzis or shekel, and he died? Then Yiplu and his Amalek, obviously count as Machtzis or shekel in the Korbanos Sibur of that year, because he's not part of the Tibur anymore. He's dead. So he said Yiplu and the money goes to Nedava. So that money was set aside for Korban Sibur to Kachim. If the guy dies, the money goes to Nedava. So we see that Meiser Kachim and Nedava, according to Shmuel, goes to buy optional olos. And what about Rabbi Elazar, even though his name is missing here, but should say Rabbi Elazar? Moser Asir Sahib Shlots from the following case. The Kohen Gadol dies. Or even if he doesn't die, he set aside money for Asir Sahib, Kohen Gadol is bringing pancakes every day. Right, 6 in the morning, 6 in the afternoon, for an Asir Sahib of flour. So he set aside money for that purpose, and the money is left over. Rabbi Yochanan, the money left over goes to the Dead Sea. Goes to Nedava. Why? Because Kachi, whatever's left over goes to Nedava. Okay? Period. Going on. Rabbi B'Shem Rab. Rabbi the name Rab, most stupid. Meaning that which we say that it's a cute Gemara, one of these Gemaras which you don't know, farm science, makes no sense to you. It says by money, you could say the $150, Ola, Shlomi, Chatos all mixed together. But not by animals. Because the animals are all different. I'm just waiting for the name Moshe. I would have no clue. He says that the one which is female goes to Chatos. The one which is male goes to Ola. And the Ayil, the ram, who's 2 years old, goes to the Shlomi. So even if you have 3 animals that are not designated, it's never shaykh to call them stumim because they're all identifiable. To us, they all look like barnyard animals. But every korban has a specific barnyard animal allocated to it, and therefore, since each animal is different, there's no stumim. You know by definition which one was intended for which purpose. Okay? Says the Gemara, Rav Shesha said, the Tanike, we also had the Brisa like this. The Brisa says, now it's not all Brisa is brought down here, but the Pnei Moshe brings down the whole Brisa. It says Karbono. This is talking about by Chatos brought by an individual. He brings Karbono. Karbono means it has to be his Karban, not the Karban of his father. His father left over a Karban, he's not yoti with that Karban. Okay? And and now picking up with the rest of the Brisa in the Gemara, maybe it's not yotz with his father's Karban, but maybe his father committed a lighter sin, right? And he committed a more grave sin. Say his father, for example, who had relations with an ancient ish, which is chenek, and he committed relations with Nara Murasa, which is skila, right? So both if you do b'shoke, he can bring a chatos. So maybe he can use his father's korban, which are less severe avera, for his more severe avera. Or mina chamura, if his father committed a more severe avera, lakala. You can't use it for his less severe avera. Or mina kala from one type of less severe avera, lakala to another type of less severe avera. Or mina chamura from one type of more severe avera, lakhamura for a more severe avera. Shekain, and why can't you do that? Shekain ena megaleach al behemas aviv nazirus. Because the halacha is, if your father was a Nazir and he died, and he left you an animal, which he was intended for you to be for use for his Nazirus, and you're a Nazir now too, you can't use his animal. But if he left aside money, there's a special again halacha much b'sinai that you use the money he left over. So maybe that's different, right? Maybe he's with the father's korban, b'mos, not with an animal, but with money. The sheefish which his father set aside. Minakala chamura, from the lighter to the more severe. Minachamura lakala, and from the more severe to the lighter. Minakala lakala, and from the less severe to the less severe. Minachamura lachamura, from the more severe to the more severe. Shkenim galecha most nazirus, because he can use his father's money left over for his own nazirus. His mind changed to assume on shem for as long as his father did not designate the money for specific karbanos. Tamulomar, that's why the pasuk has to say, Korbono, his korbon, be korbono, echuhu yotze, when his own korban is yotze, and a yotze korban by regular chatos, you can't use the father's korban. Only by nazirus, not by regular chatos. Okay? So it says the Gemara, Kshuet Slamos, Umas Kustumi. Now this brisa, when it talks about money, it talks about money which is not designated. But when it talks about an animal, it doesn't mention susumim. Why is that? Because obviously an animal has no concept of susumim, because you can always tell what the animal is designated for based on its gender and its type. Okay? Behema, now however the Gemara qualifies, it's not that simple. Behema ain't all that hilchostumim b'tchila. And an animal initially has no halacha of sasum. Yesh la hilchostum misof, but there is a concept of sasum at the end. The Gemara will explain what that means in a minute. Money, on the other hand, yesh la hilchostum b'tchila, it has halacha being generically designated, meaning not designated at the beginning. Vein aleim hilchostum misof, but not at the end. Okay, how do we explain this? Let's start first with money. By money, there's halach of sasum. It's not specified initially. As we learned, mostly, a person had an unspecified fund set aside for nazirus. You put nadava, they all go to buy nadava. Behema ain't olea. It's hilchostumim, as we learned as well. The Tazor Rishon Gamli Omer, Hevi Shlosh Behemos. If he brought 3 animals lo pirish and he didn't designate it, nonetheless, it's considered to be the one which is suitable. It's not brought down here, but the mission later on says that the one suitable chatas for the chatas, one for the ola is ola, one for shloim is shloim, because we know what the animals look like, gender and type. However, that we knew. Now we come to parts we didn't know from before. Most einaleim hilchos tumim basof. There is no concept of generic at the end. What's that mean? It's not what it means. Elu l'chatosi. If the guy said, this money is supposed to be for my chatos. Ve'elu v'shar l'shar nazirusi. And the rest goes to the rest of my nazirus, meaning the olon shlomim. Umeis, and then he dies. Molim b'kulon. There's mila only if you're moel in all the money. Ve'molim mitzvahs, and there is no mila if you're moel in part of the money. Why? If they're most stumim, let's say that all of them are olon shlomi together. So even if you use part of the money, it should still be mila. Why do you have to use all of the money in order to make it mila? It must be that once you set aside the chatos, the remaining funds are also as if they're separated into olon shlomi, and you just don't know which is which. And therefore we see here, there's no halach of stumim at the end. At the beginning, there's a concept of stumim, that they're all mixed in together. And then, of course, you can, if the good Nazir dies at that point, according to halacha Moshe B'Sinai, which Reb Zira said, they all become nedafa. But if you already set aside the chatos, and now you have the Ola and Shlomi mixed together, so then I say, it's not stumim anymore. Part of them are Ola, part of them are Shlomi, I don't know which one. Okay? This is the price, of course, it's going like Reb Chisda, that once you set aside the chatos, then the rest does not become automatically Ola. It subdivides into Ola and Shlomi. Reb Zira, even in this case, this price we said is not like Reb Zira. Reb Zira, even in this case, the rest of it is all Ola. Okay, so the specific price which is not like Reb Zira. An animal does have a loch of stumim at the end. What's that? It's a cool case. Shivi Mos, you brought money. and the money was generic. The chilon alabema, and you use the money to buy an animal. What animal did you buy? Not a korban. What did you buy? You bought a what? Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I'm sorry. When you, in other words, if you use the animal, the money set aside for korban to buy a chamor. Obviously, the chamor is not a korban, right? So that's you took and add some case for an animal. It's awesome because you can't look at the animal and know what kind of a korban it's going to be. Because ultimately, in order to make korban, is going to have to sell the donkey and buy something else. So here you have an animal, which is awesome, right? He free sure. What if, however, you use the money to buy an ox? They both said name Shemi. One said it's like setting aside money, because no way Kali. It's like setting aside an animal. So I don't know exactly what it means. It's like setting aside an animal. I guess it's like the Korban wants to say it has to do with. It's like what? Yeah, it's maybe tzmura to be an option, but I think maybe if it's a female ox, then that's considered to be as if it's the chatos, even though the chatos would be a female goat. But it's as if it's the chatos. If it's a male ox, you don't like that, do you? There isn't. How do you get little oxen? I don't know. I'm just guessing. There isn't a male ox and a female ox? If there isn't, then you have a very valid point. But I don't know. But if there is, maybe it's a para. I don't know. Par and para are bull and... I don't know. I assume there's a... I don't know what an ox is. I thought an ox is a variation on a cow. It's a different type of cow. That was my impression. Or maybe I'm wrong. Anyway, that's because we don't know anything about animals. That's okay, great. So that's the same. Maybe that's what it means. Ma'abshem means if it's female, it's like the chat. If it's male, it's like the ola. But maybe not. Maybe you're right. Maybe it's supposed to be tmura. It's a chamor can make a tmura, but the ox, since even though you're going to have to redeem it and buy other karbanos with it, but right now it's like it's kadosh. Or the option the korban brings up, which is similar to yours, is it has to get a mum in order to redeem it. If it's chamor, it doesn't need a mum because it's not a korban. But if it's a shiur, it would need a mum in order to redeem it. Okay. If one of the bloods was sprinkled, any one of them, any one of the three, any that's it. Time's up. He can't be made for anymore. Which is a shtickle mashma like the rugged trover. That's a special halacha, and no, it's not mashma the rugged trover. Scratch that. And I wrote that aside my gemara. It's mashma the rugged trover, but not necessarily. It means that you're being made for an edit which already took place. You can't be made for after the fact. Right. That's basically saying. She's finished. Right. Even if one of the animals is slaughtered, not yet the blood sprinkled. Any yochel he can't be made for. But when is this true? But when now she's getting shaved in order to complete her nazirus because she was torn the whole time. But if she's getting shaved now because she got tame and she's going to have to keep nazirus again, right? Then you're fair. You can be made for. I can say if she be someone else, I cannot stand a repugnant woman. What's a repugnant woman? She can't drink wine. I can't live with my wife if I can't give her wine to drink. Remember, we learned the Ksumas wine is very effective on women. So therefore, he doesn't want to have a wife who's not going to drink. Right? Especially Friday nights, right? Even if she be someone else. Even if it's after the korbanos have been brought, before she's shaved, he can be made for. He's not a chosid. I can say, if she be shemagulachas, I don't want a woman with a shaved head. So therefore, he can still be made for even after the korbanos are brought. Okay? So it says the Gemara. Now here there are all sorts of girsos. The first few lines, and the Shaitar so just takes out the first 4 lines. I think it's okay. He says, made for love ibnei Sarah. Can it be? How can you made for the how can you make for the karbanos, right? Just because he doesn't like her hair. So says the Gemara, Rabbi Yosef, Rabbi Yosef said, yeah, still he can do it. There's a kosavu. A fair nidorea. Hey fair masholeh. He first the dorim. He can be made for that which is upon her, meaning the karbanos. B'shol shu mefer nidorea mefer masholeh. He's made for the karbanos as well. In other words, just because he doesn't like her hair, he can take karbanos which he set aside and render them not karbanos anymore. That's terrible. So everyone's saying there's a cost. A special law, you're allowed to be made for Nazirus, and then the Nazir, the Karbanos also, they're called Masha'aleh, they fall by the wayside. So special there's a custom, that's the way it is. He has the right to do so. Okay?
He didn't know about the Nazir for 30 to 29
Yeah, he didn't know, he was out of town, and she came back and found out, yeah. So that's especially as custom. So again, it sounds like the Rogatch over here, that's especially as custom. There's regular on first time, the Nazirus and the Nadarim, and then we read and need a special for us Nadarim by Nazira to tell us that even though he's going to undermine, deconsecrate her karbanos that way, then nonetheless he has the right to do that. Okay, that's a special. I want to emphasize that that's a very big chiddush, because l'chayra, once a person's obligated in a karban, so that that obligation being karban should tie the person in to the antecedent which generated that karban. How can you possibly undermine that? It's like a nether, something which floats until it's fixed into something real. And here it got fixed into something real, into a carbon. So how can it be made for? That's a special xeris akasiv in order to allow him to be made for in that situation. Right. Okay, I'm Rabbi Lezer. Let's head to Rabbi Shimon here. That is going like Rabbi Shimon. What Rabbi Shimon said is going to be is going to be explained momentarily. Rabbi Yochanan says divrei hakoli. It's going to everybody. Now, mishanita milo sasei lasei. What once it changes from a lo sasei to an asei. Now, this is a very important thing. I was very happy today because I learned this Gemara like the Brisker Rav, or actually I learned the Ramali Brisker Rav. Even before seeing the Brisker Rav inside. The question you're dealing with is how after one carbon has been slaughtered or blood has been sprinkled, can still be made for her nether. What is there to be made for? She's not a Nazir anymore. Not a Nazir. The halacha is the Chatchil is supposed to bring all three. But the Evan, once you brought one, she's already not a Nazir anymore. She's allowed to drink wine. She's allowed to be Matamil Mason. So what is there to be made for? What? So how can you make for the haircut? Now she's mechuyev to take a haircut. She's mechuyev to take a haircut. It's not a neder. Her neder's over. Now she's melez halacha. She has to take a haircut. It's a separate halacha. That's not a neder anymore. The neder was the Nazirus. I have Nazirus over, you have to take haircuts. The neder is to keep a Nazirus period. It's not a neder to take a haircut. At the end of the Nazirus period, take a haircut. So he can be made for her Nazirus. He can't be made for a haircut. Now he doesn't want her to take a haircut, true. But the nether's over. What is he being made for? No, you can't be made for nether, my friend. So say once the nether's over, you can't be made for anymore. So Rabbi Lezer would say it's like Rabbi Shimon, who holds you can't even that a Nazir. Well, let's see what the word says. Rabbanan say va'acha yishta Nazir yain. So he wanted to say, well, actually, Rabbi Lezer, the Rabbi Shimon, he wanted to say our Mishnah is like Rabbi Shimon, who hold. That's why after I got it wrong. Our Mishnah says after one animal has been the blood has been sprinkled, you can't be made for anymore, right? And he wanted to say that's like Rabbi Shimon, who holds that after one carbon has been sprinkled, she's always Nazira. That's why you can't be made for after the carbon has been sprinkled. Has been done. Because Rabbi Shimon holds that already your Nazirus is over, right? But Rabbi Yochanan said, Divrei Hakoli, even Rabbanan, who hold that you cannot until the end of all three Koros are brought, you can't drink wine and you can't be matamil omesim. It's not a neder anymore. It's a mitzvah saseh. It's not a lo saseh. It's nitak from lo saseh became an aseh. So again, this is what the Brisker Rav says. It's a mitzvah now. In other words, let's see him out this way. Rabbanan say, Achar yishta nazir yain. Afterwards, the nazir drinks wine. Achar kol masim alalu. After all three korbanos are brought. Rabbi Shimon feel achar ma'isi yechidi. Rabbi Shimon says even after one korban is done. So we wanted to say, or let's just say, our Mishnah which says after one korban you can't be made for nazir. It was like Rabbi Shimon. Because like Rabbanan, she's still in the zero, her net is still in effect. No, says Rabbi Yochanan. After one korban, she's talking on the zero anymore. She's not supposed to eat meat, nor drink wine, nor be matame until she brings the other two. That's not her nether. It's not a losa say. If she doesn't text at this point, she won't get malchus. It's a mitzvah for her to refrain. So therefore, taker and the zeros is over. She says the mitzvah to refrain from the things which are forbidden to a nazir, not allowed, just a mitzvah to say until the third one is brought. The Rambam says that it's even, and the Rambam passes like this more. Everybody goes crazy. How can he pass things like that? A year after, so the first korban, because she passed like Rabbi Shimon, but he passed in the Bible. The Brisker Rav says they didn't see the Yerushalmi. Yerushalmi says that Rabbanan holds that after first korban you're downgraded, but it's still a mitzvah, and that's not the way the Rambam passes. Like Rabbanan according to the Yerushalmi. Brisker Rav adds something else. It says she's not allowed to. The Brahman says not allowed to drink wine or become tamei until night, unless she got a haircut. So everybody asks, what does nightfall have to do with it? So Brisker Rav explains, we don't want this, so for her. It's not the pshat that she's not allowed to mamish, but rather we want the tiglachas, the haircut, to be samach to the karbanos, and this would be an interruption if she started drinking wine and being metallic mason between the karbanos and the haircut. But by the next day, if she hasn't taken your haircut, it's anyway not samach to the karbanos, right? So on that day, if she hasn't taken her haircut, she shouldn't drink wine nor be metallic mason. So it's not to make a hefsek. But by the next day, it's already a hefsek by virtue of the fact that it was overnight. So then, even if she didn't take her tiglachas yet, she can already be metallic mason and drink wine. Okay. Says Chizkiah said, Masnisa Messiah Rabbi Eliezer. Our Mishnah is like Rabbi Eliezer. The following Bryce like Rabbi Eliezer, excuse me. What does the Bryce say? It says, when is this true? When she's going out of the Nazirus. Tiglachas Tuma, but if she's going back into the Nazirus because Tiglachas Tuma, Yofim. He can be Mefer, right? Shuyochalom, they can say, if Shabishan Nuvelis. It's not possible to live with a woman who won't drink wine for another 30 days. Tiglachas Tahara, but it sounds like Tiglachas Tahara. If she's getting her now, her Tiglachas Tahara, who's going now to the end of her Nazirus, Einam Nuvelis. She's not considered to be disgusting. Man the Islay Tiglachas Einam Nuvelis. Who's the one who holds that Tiglachas of Tara is not a problem for him because he doesn't care about having a shorn head? So, lo Rabbi Shimon, isn't that Rabbi Shimon? Rabbi Yisrael, no. Rabbi Yisrael said, Af Rebbe the Kavasa, Af Rebbe. Even Rebbe holds this way because the Kavasa, Rebbe says, Af Tiglachas Tara. No, just I'm making a mistake. 1 second. I made a mistake. Sorry. Let me go back here. Masisim said Rabbi Eliezer. Our Bryce is like Rabbi. The following the Bryce is like Rabbi Eliezer, who says that this mission is going like Rabbi Shimon, not like Rabbanan. In the Machlokes, just have he said it's going like Rabbi Shimon, not like Rabbanan, because he says Medvar Muim Tiglachas Tara. It says we're talking about Tiglachas Tara. Tiglachas Tuma Yofil. If you show you Yochel Mariyev Shabishim Nuvels. Tiglachas Tara Einum Elis. It sounds like we're talking about a case where she's not menuvelis, by tiglachas tara, meaning, again, according like the Rambam I just mentioned, that she can drink wine even before her haircut. Which it sounds like he can't be made for a neder while she's waiting to get her haircut when it's betara, because she can already drink wine, so she's not novellas. It's not a problem. Mandi say tiglachas novellas. Who holds that the haircut is not an impediment? That even after one korban she can have a wine, even though she has blood yakubas, even if she didn't get a haircut. Rabbi Shimon is not called like Rabbi Shimon, so our mission is like Rabbi Shimon. So it says more. No, Rabbi Yisrael Rabun af Rabbi the kabasar. The Rabbi also holds that way. How so? Because Rabbi Omer abati glachas tara. Rabbi at the end of our mission said by tiglachas tara yofer he can be made for another. Why? Because he could say if she beisha migulachas. I don't want a woman who's going to shave. What about the fact she can't drink wine? It must be that Rebbe holds that she can drink wine already. So we see that also Rebbe, not just Rebbe Shimon, and Rebbe called that she can drink wine already after the haircut. And it could be also after the korban. And could be also Rabbanon hold that way. She shouldn't drink wine until after the haircut. So that's like the Rambam says, only a mitzvah, but not an absolute lab that she can't drink it, so therefore it's not a neder anymore. So once we see that even Rebbe holds she can drink wine after the glachas tara, then it's fungible, and we can say also maybe she can drink wine mikra din. It's just a mitzvah for her to wait, like the Rambam paskins, right? Rabbi Yerushalmi Rabbi Akiva ela b'chatos. The Rabbi Akiva said, when Rabbi Akiva said that after shechita already shouldn't be made for neder, that's only by chatos. Shechatas psula shelo lishma, because chatas pasul shelo lishma, meaning if you're made for the neder now, the chatas can't be brought for anything, right? It have to be carted out. The carcass will have to be carted out of the Beis Hamikdash. But if you're made for the neder after Yola Shlamim, you continue and say it's an Ola Shlamim shelo lishma, means she's not Nazir anymore. But Ola Shlamim shelo lishma, it still counts as an Ola Shlamim. You don't have to cart out the carcass, right? So me'ata, if that's the case, I feel mechaim once you separated the chatos, even while it's alive. So it's like we're count the chatos is like wasted. So you shouldn't be able to make for the neder once he designates the chatos. No, it only has a problem. It only becomes literally a wasted korban once the korban is slaughtered. Well, it's alive. Okay, it might have to die. But that's not the same problem of having a waste of the korban, which is already shechted. Let's just get to home base so we can say we did 2 blot. Oh, actually, it's not true. It's a machlokas in the Bible. Yerushalmi doesn't mean down. It's because of chinuch. A father can make a son a nazir. But not a mother. Keitzad, how so? Now this case it doesn't go directly back to the Rishon, but it says it's also either part of the part of the Takon Rabbanan. If he himself shaves, if the father shaves the kid, or relatives shave the kid, and they're making a micha, or he protests, the kid himself protests, or shemichu krovim, or the relatives protest, then that cancels the Nazirus. So it's all part of this weird Xeris HaKosov, that the father can make a son a Nazir, but he can protest, the father can protest, and the relatives can protest, and maybe even the kid himself can protest. We'll speak about that again in Mirza Shem on Monday.